The galaxy is a huge assembly of stars. The Milky Way contains something like 200 to 400 billion stars.
If it's the same star, and if it's in the Andromeda Nebula, it puts the Andromeda Nebula far outside of the Milky Way.
Someone took the single biggest mystery in space science, the question that has haunted scientists for over 70 years, and handed it to Grok, the AI built by Elon Musk's company, XAI, asking it to reason all the way to the bottom. What Grok said back was not a tidy textbook answer. It was something that made the people reading it go quiet. Because the AI did not just take a swing at the mystery. It noticed a door the rest of us have stood in front of for decades, certain it was locked. And what waits on the other side is genuinely terrifying. The lunch question. To understand what Grok was really staring at, you have to go back to the lunch table. It is the summer of 1950 in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and a handful of the brightest physicists alive are sitting together, having the kind of loose, wandering conversation that happens when intelligent people let their minds drift. One of them is Enrico Fermi, the Italian-American physicist who had already reshaped the world by helping unlock nuclear energy. The talk drifts to flying saucers in the papers, and then to the simple question of whether anyone else is out there at all. And then Fermi, almost as a throwaway, asks something none of those geniuses can answer. He glances around the table and asks, "Where is everybody?" 4 words. That is all it is. But folded inside those 4 words is a problem so deep it has survived every serious attempt to put it to rest for more than 70 years. And here is the thing. The harder you stare at Fermi's little question, the worse it gets. Because the universe was about to turn those 4 casual words into something that feels a lot like a threat. Where is everybody? Look up tonight, and here is what is actually above your head. Hundreds of billions of galaxies, each one packed with hundreds of billions of stars. And around those stars, planets. Trillions upon trillions of worlds. Some scorching, some frozen solid, and some sitting in that one narrow band scientists obsess over. Not too hot, not too cold, where water can stay liquid, and where, under the right conditions, something extraordinary becomes possible. Life. Now run the numbers the way Fermi did at that table. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, is older than our own sun by billions of years, and it holds somewhere between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. So start cutting. Say only a sliver of those stars have planets. Only a sliver of those planets land in the habitable zone. Only a sliver of those ever grow life at all. Only a sliver of that life ever gets intelligent. Only a sliver of that intelligence ever builds anything like technology. Cut and cut and cut, and slash the odds as hard as you honestly can. You are still left with thousands, maybe millions of technological civilizations. Not in the whole universe, in our galaxy alone. And here is the part that genuinely messes with your head. Some of those civilizations would not just exist, they would be old. Older than us, not by years, not by centuries, but by millions of years. Given a species that kind of head start, and even crawling between the stars at a tiny fraction of light speed, it would have had enough time to spread across the entire Milky Way, and not once, many times over, which means the galaxy should not just have a few neighbors scattered around in it. It should be colonized, crowded, and loud. You should not be able to look up at night without tripping over someone else's fingerprints. So, where is everybody? Why has not one probe, one signal, one deliberate hello ever reached us? Why, after 60 years of pointing radio dishes at the sky and straining to hear, have we caught nothing but silence? That is the trap Fermi laid down in 4 words. The math screams, they should be everywhere. The sky insists they are nowhere. And the gap between those two things is one of the most haunting holes in all of science. So, when that exact question was finally handed to Grok, fed the data, the decades of dead-end searches, the whole haunted history of it, the AI did not hand back one clean answer. It handed back a ladder, a series of explanations, and it started climbing down into the dark, one rung at a time. The first rung is almost comforting. By the time it reaches the bottom, comfort is the last thing left. A freak accident. The first step offers a simple explanation. Maybe life is just uncommon. Diamonds are uncommon. Not 1 in a million, just uncommon. Uncommon, the way one precise result out of a trillion random dice rolls is uncommon. Around the start of this century, two scientists, paleontologist Peter Ward and astronomer Donald Brownlee, explored this idea in depth and named it the rare earth hypothesis. Their argument quietly strips away one assumption we almost never question, that Earth is just another ordinary planet. But according to them, Earth is anything but ordinary. It is an extraordinary accident built on top of another extraordinary accident, and then another, all the way down. Think about everything that had to fall perfectly into place. A moon, almost exactly the right size to stabilize Earth's tilt. Without it, the climate could swing between unbearable heat and deadly ice ages. Jupiter sitting farther away like a giant protector, using its gravity to sweep up comets and asteroids that might otherwise crash into Earth again and again. Plate tectonics constantly recycles the planet's chemistry and keeps the atmosphere breathable for billions of years. A calm, middle-aged star, stable enough not to scorch the planet, with Earth orbiting at just the perfect distance. Liquid water. A magnetic field shielding us from radiation that would otherwise strip the atmosphere away into space. Remove even one of those pieces, and life as we know it may never have begun. Now, imagine needing every single one of them on the same planet at the same moment. Stack all those conditions together, and the chances of another Earth shrink toward almost nothing. If that is the truth, then the silence of the universe is no mystery at all. It is simply what an empty universe sounds like. But there is one problem with settling on that explanation, and every year that problem keeps growing. We continue discovering planets, thousands of confirmed worlds orbiting distant stars, with even more being found by telescopes like Kepler and TESS. When astronomers first began searching, many quietly believed planets would be uncommon. Instead, almost every star they examined turned out to have its own family of worlds circling around it. Suddenly, the galaxy looked less like a barren desert and more like a wildly overgrown garden. Even more surprising, the data suggests that nearly 1 out of every 4 stars may host a roughly Earth-sized planet somewhere inside its habitable zone. That means tens of billions of possible chances in our galaxy alone. With numbers like that, claiming life only succeeded here starts sounding less like science and more like overconfidence. So, we move down to the next step. And this is where the question shifts from whether they exist to what eventually happens to every civilization that does. The Great Filter. Before we take the next step, there is something worth mentioning, because this part is the one that genuinely keeps me awake at night. This entire channel is really just me following questions like this as deep into the darkness as they can possibly go. If that sounds like something you enjoy, consider subscribing. I explore ideas like this every week, and they only become stranger from here. All right, let's keep going. It is called The Great Filter, an idea introduced by the economist Robin Hanson in the late 1990s, and it is every bit as unsettling as the name suggests. The reasoning is brutally simple. If expanding across the galaxy is the natural destination of intelligent life, yet we look into the universe and see absolutely nobody doing it, then something must be stopping civilizations before they ever reach that point. Somewhere along the long journey from lifeless chemistry to a civilization spread across the stars, there is a wall, a filter, and almost nothing ever makes it beyond. And in the end, there is really only one question that matters. Is that wall already behind us, or is it still waiting ahead? If it is behind us, then we have already crossed the toughest hurdle, and maybe we can finally relax. Perhaps the nearly impossible step was the very beginning, life somehow emerging from lifeless chemistry on a young planet. Maybe it was the jump from simple cells to complex ones, a leap that took almost 2 billion years here on Earth, and perhaps something so unlikely that it almost never happens anywhere else. If one of those ancient milestones is the filter, then most planets stay covered in nothing more than microscopic life forever. And somehow, we are the lucky winners who made it beyond. We beat impossible odds. The path ahead is clear. Take in the view. And those are not the only gates we had to pass through. There was the leap from single cells to countless cells working together as one living body. Then came nervous systems, advanced enough to question the world around them. Then, the jump from an intelligent animal to a species that writes stories, builds tools, and begins reaching toward the stars. Every one of those milestones happened only once across nearly 4 billion years of life on Earth. Some of them took over 1 billion years to appear. If even one of those stages is the wall, then the galaxy could be overflowing with life that never advanced beyond slime, never grew beyond instinct, or never escaped its own Stone Age. And we would be the rarest thing in existence, the ones who somehow passed through every single doorway without getting trapped at the entrance. But if the wall is still ahead of us, that is the possibility that should leave a knot in your stomach. It would mean there is some barrier that every civilization crashes into soon after reaching roughly our level of technology, and not a single one, anywhere across billions of years, has ever survived it. Nuclear war, engineered pandemics, climate collapse, artificial intelligence is breaking beyond our control. Some final threshold that no species has ever crossed and lived through. Picture that for a moment. Suddenly, staring into the silent night sky no longer feels like looking into an empty room. It feels like standing in a graveyard, every star another headstone, while slowly realizing that we are still walking toward the very thing that buried everyone else before us. And this is what makes that possibility hit so hard right now, in our own lifetime, in this very decade. We are the first generation in human history holding several of those possible doomsday doors open at the same time. The nuclear weapons are real, and they are still aimed. The laboratories capable of creating a perfect plague are real. The climate is already changing beneath our feet, and we are rapidly building minds that may someday become smarter than us without fully knowing how to keep them moving in a direction that stays safe. If the Great Filter truly is a technological barrier, then we are not reading about it in some history book from the distant past. We are standing at its front door with our hand already reaching for the handle. And this is where Grok said the part out loud that many scientists usually only whisper to one another. Discovering life on Mars, beneath Europa's frozen ocean, or anywhere else in our own solar system would not necessarily be a reason to celebrate. It could become the most terrifying discovery in human history, because if even simple microbial life turns out to be common, then life itself was never the filter we already crossed. The real filter lies somewhere higher up the ladder, somewhere we have not reached yet. Which means It is almost certainly still ahead of us, still waiting patiently for our turn. So why has it not reached us already? Maybe it is still coming. Or maybe, and this brings us to the next step, the others are not gone at all. Maybe they have been there the whole time, and they have simply chosen not to answer. The Silent Zoo. What if the advanced civilizations already know we exist and have simply chosen not to say anything? Not because they fear us, but because they are observing us. The way a wildlife researcher quietly watches a pack of wolves from a distance and never interferes, no matter what unfolds. The way you would carefully study a natural ecosystem without disturbing it, so it stays exactly the way it is. That is the zoo hypothesis, and on the surface it sounds surprisingly comforting. Imagine a peaceful galactic neighborhood, a network of ancient civilizations that long ago agreed, through some form of cosmic etiquette we can barely imagine, to leave young species like ours alone until we reach a point where we are finally ready for contact. At first, it almost feels reassuring. The universe is not empty after all. We are simply behind the glass, part of a protected exhibit, not quite ready to meet the visitors. And then the weight of that idea sinks in. If that is true, then someone could be watching us right now, at this very moment. And whoever they are has looked at humanity closely and decided we are still not ready. There is an even darker version of this idea, and somehow it is worse. Maybe the door does not open once we become peaceful enough or wise enough. Maybe it opens the moment we develop a certain ability, the power to detect them, to reach them, or even to become a threat. In that version, we are not being protected at all. We are being observed, the way someone keeps a careful eye on a sleeping predator that could become dangerous if it wakes up. The day we finally cross that invisible line is not the day we are welcomed into a galactic community. It is the day the watching stops being passive and becomes something we no longer have any control over. Here is the part almost nobody wants to say out loud. Maybe the line we have not crossed has nothing to do with technology. Maybe it is about morality. Maybe you do not earn the keys to the galaxy until you stop aiming your smartest weapons at your own kind. And from an outside perspective, we may look exactly like a civilization that still has not learned that lesson. The unsettling part about the glass is not that it might exist. It is that we cannot see it, cannot test whether it is real, and cannot even know if the silence beyond it comes from patience or from a judgment that has already been made. But there is another, much colder way to understand that silence. One where nobody is protecting us at all. And the quiet is not compassion. It is survival. The dark forest. It is called the dark forest, an idea made famous by science fiction author Liu Cixin. And once it settles into your mind, it never really leaves. The universe is not silent because nobody is out there. It is silent because every civilization that survives long enough eventually learns the very same brutal lesson. In a universe with limited resources and complete uncertainty, where you can never know if the stranger hiding in the darkness wants to trade with you or wipe you out, announcing your existence becomes the most dangerous decision you could ever make. Imagine every civilization as a lone hunter moving through a forest in complete darkness. You cannot see the others, but you know they are somewhere out there. You have no way of knowing whether they are friendly, and you cannot afford to find out by making a mistake, because if you guess wrong even once, there will never be another chance. So the only strategy that keeps you alive is staying completely silent and treating every sound you hear as a possible threat that must be eliminated before it eliminates you. The civilizations that chose to broadcast The ones that lit up the universe calling out for a friend were the ones that received a reply they never lived to tell anyone about. And here is the trap that makes this idea almost impossible to escape. Even if you are peaceful, even if hurting another living being would never cross your mind, you have no way of knowing that the stranger hiding in the darkness is peaceful too. And they have no way of knowing the same about you. Neither side can afford to wait and see, because the distances between stars are so enormous that, by the time a single message finally arrives, the civilization that sent it could have become vastly more powerful or disappeared completely. So both sides are pushed toward the same conclusion. Assume the worst, and act before the other side gets the chance. Suspicion feeds suspicion. Fear answers fear, until the only sensible strategy left in the entire galaxy is to stay hidden and quietly destroy anything that reveals itself before it has the opportunity to do the same to you. So the silence is not emptiness. It is an entire galaxy holding its breath. And here is the part that should send a chill down your spine. Humanity has been broadcasting signals into space for more than 100 years. We are the young species crashing through the undergrowth, happily shouting into the forest, never told there were rules, never even realizing there was a game to begin with. And the most unsettling part of the dark forest is that nobody inside it has to be evil for the idea to work. Everyone only has to be cautious. Take ordinary caution and stretch it across entire civilizations separated by distances so immense that no ship, no signal, and no warning can ever arrive in time, and caution begins to look exactly like violence. A galaxy filled with completely reasonable, completely terrified civilizations would appear exactly like the silent, lifeless sky we actually observe. But Grok noticed something hidden beneath every one of these ideas. Every step so far, the freak accident, the great filter, the zoo, and the dark forest, quietly depends on the very same assumption. And it may be the most dangerous assumption humanity has ever made. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the darkest questions surrounding the universe, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more stories about space, science, and the mysteries we still cannot explain. And if you made it this far, let me know in the comments. Do you think humanity is truly alone in the universe, or is someone, somewhere, already watching us? Until next time, keep looking up and keep asking questions,